Welcome back, everybody. We're diving deep today into the Charlotte real estate market using the latest data from September 2024. We've got the Canopy Realtor Association report, so you know we're working with solid, reliable information. Ready to see what's up? Are we looking at a cool down, or are things still hot?
Well, if we look at home sales, they're down 7.3% year over year. We saw just a bit over 3,200 closings in September. But here's the thing. When we look at year-to-date sales, they're practically even with 2023. So it's going to be interesting to watch that and see how things play out as we get closer to the end of the year.
It's kind of a mixed bag right now.
Yeah.
What about if we zoom in on Mecklenburg County and Charlotte itself?
Those areas actually both saw a bigger drop in sales. Mecklenburg County sales are down 8.7%. And Charlotte down 9%. But pending contracts, now those are telling a different story. They actually surged 14.4% year over year, and that's for the region as a whole.
Wow, that's a pretty big contrast. So would you say investors should read that as demand is still pretty strong?
I think that's definitely one way to look at it. And if we look at specific areas, we can see that strong activity too. Like Matthews and Waxhaw, they're averaging 5.8 and 5.2 showings per listing.
So buyers are definitely still out there and active. All right, let's switch gears and see what's going on with sellers. The report's showing that new listings have been going up for 12 months in a row now. September saw a 7.5% increase.
That's right. But at the same time, price reductions have gone up too. And it's a significant jump by 31.6%. This might mean that sellers are starting to rethink what they expect to get for their properties.
That's interesting. The report also mentions that even with more inventory, we're still seeing strong buyer demand, so it's working in the seller's favor. So is it still a seller's market then?
Well, inventory and supply are both up 42% compared to last year. Right now, there's 2.7 months of supply, which is better than last year's 1.9 months. But usually we think of a balanced market as having about 6 months of supply.
That's a good number for investors to keep in mind. What can you tell us about what's happening with prices?
Well, both the median and average sales prices went up year over year. The median price is up 3.9% to $395,000. And the average is up 7.1% to $502,772.
Okay, so prices are up. But are we seeing any changes in how long properties are staying on the market?
We are. The list to close time has gone up to 86 days. That gives buyers some breathing room and more time to negotiate. All right, so let's take a closer look at Mecklenburg County specifically. When we look at September, closed sales actually decreased by 8.7% year over year, pretty much following that regional trend we were talking about.
Makes sense. What about pending contracts there?
Well, in the county, those actually increased, up 11.6% year over year.
So it seems like demand in Mecklenburg County is also pretty similar to what's happening in the region overall. What about prices in the county?
Both the median and average sales prices went up there too. The median price hit $440,000. That's a 4.8% increase from last year. And the average climbed to $577,745. So that's a 6.7% jump.
It's interesting to see those prices still going up, even with more inventory on the market.
Yeah, and there's another thing to think about too. The average list price in Mecklenburg County, that also went up by 7.1%, reaching $643,063.
So it sounds like sellers are still feeling pretty good about things.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears again and look at what's happening just within Charlotte City itself.
Okay, so in Charlotte, sales went down 9% year over year. But when we look at contracts in the city, those actually showed an 11.8% increase. And that's compared to September 2023.
Okay, so even though sales went down a little, it seems like buyers are still pretty interested. Did Charlotte see the same increases in inventory that we talked about for the region and the county?
Yeah, it did. Both inventory and supply in Charlotte went up almost 50% in September. That means there's now 2.4 months of supply.
So still not quite at that 6 months. That would signal a balanced market.
Yeah.
What happened with prices in Charlotte? Were they similar to the trends we saw in the county and the region?
Well, the median sales price in Charlotte increased just a little bit to $410,000, but the average sales price in the city climbed 5.1%, reaching $569,581.
So it sounds like Charlotte is seeing kind of a pattern where the median price is going up a little, but the average price is increasing more.
That's right. And the average list price in Charlotte also went up by 5% to $602,602.
So it looks like even though we might be seeing some changes starting to happen in the market, sellers are still holding pretty steady on their pricing. Based on all these trends, what are your overall thoughts?
Well, I think what we're seeing in the Charlotte market is a mix of different signals. On the one hand, buyer demand seems to be staying strong. Pending contracts are up everywhere we look, region, county, city.
Yeah, that definitely seems like the most consistent thing we're seeing across all areas.
Definitely. But then on the other hand, we're seeing this little decrease in closed sales
Yeah.
and that increase in price reductions. So those things could mean that the market is starting to shift a bit and inventory is increasing. But
Yeah.
we're still not close to a balanced market yet.
And prices are still going up.
For now,
Uh,
it's really going to depend on what happens next, especially if inventory keeps going up.
all right, so as we wrap up this deep dive into the September data, it feels like the Charlotte market is at kind of a crossroads right now. We're seeing these little hints that things might be starting to shift, but it's not a super clear picture yet.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. There's definitely a lot of information here for investors to consider.
Absolutely. So let's do a quick recap of the key takeaways here. We saw sales dip a little bit in September, but when we look at the whole year so far, sales are almost the same as they were in 2023. But I think what really stands out is that jump in pending contracts, up 14.4% year over year.
Yeah, that's pretty significant. And the other good news for buyers is that inventory is finally increasing, which means more choices for them. But we're still at 2.7 months of supply, so we still got a way to go before we hit that balanced market.
Makes sense. And what about prices? It seems like they're still going up.
They are. We saw both median and average prices climb year over year, although those increases were a bit smaller in Charlotte itself.
Right. And we can't forget about that list to close time. It's now up to 86 days.
Yeah, buyers are getting a little more breathing room now, more time to think things over and negotiate.
So for our investor listeners out there,
Hmm.
what's the big question they should be asking themselves as they look at all this data?
That's a good question. I think the biggest one is this really the start of a market correction? Or is this just a little pause before prices start going up again? I'll have to wait and see what happens.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's something to keep an eye on. Well, there you have it, folks. We've got some interesting data pointing to some potential changes ahead. It's going to be fascinating to see how the Charlotte market unfolds in the next few months. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you on our next deep dive.